Hey, my name's Julian Faust. Welcome to the Profits and Panel Show. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Russell. Jeff, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'd like you to start by telling us a little bit about you and what you do at your business currently.
Absolutely. So my name is Jeff Restel. I am at Power. My company name is actually Elevate the Sun. And currently, I'm basically kind of building and training teams along with doing a lot of self-generated sales for myself. I am currently located in California, but because I am able to work remotely, I actually do a lot of business in other states, especially kind of the East Coast right now.
All right, yeah. And what does a typical day for you look like?
Typical day, obviously, right out the bat, especially working from home, keeping yourself motivated and on point is really important. So always hitting my calendar and planning my day. And then usually I'm trying to kind of time block and do a little bit of everything to kind of hopefully kind of move the needle. Um, Reaching out and doing some recruiting, talking to some people that are kind of interested in getting into solar. Always got to keep prospecting on the calendar. That's what, truly moves the needle. So whether it's kind of making phone calls, talking to old customers and getting referrals, or, making phone calls, sending emails, just, doing kind of things that nurture business. And then also do a fair amount of training, kind of keeping my team, motivated, being available to kind of answer questions, helping them along. And then, I try not to let it slip off the calendar, but always try and do a lot of education, whether it's just kind of getting better, certain skills within the industry, or just kind of, mindset training and stuff, trying to keep myself, on point.
So you actually mentioned at the beginning a little bit about motivation as well as education. So
hmm
how do you stay motivated every single day? But also after that, what exactly are you learning? What skills are you building at the moment?
Yeah. So how do I stay motivated? It's a great question, man. The cool thing is I get to start every day by taking my daughter to school. In anytime you're doing any sort of kind of entrepreneurial venture, or if you're in, like a commission-based sales, where motivation is a big part of your success. You've always got to kind of have your why in the end, and so I'm kind of reminded of that why every single morning. So that definitely helps. But I think you've also got to have a little bit of an internal motivation. I don't mind working in the end, and I have I have goals that I want to meet, and I kind of know what I need to do to meet them in the end. So, and then as far as like what skills am I working on? It can be kind of hard to focus on that in a lot of ways. I mean, honestly, like right now, it's like AI is just bombarding everything. So it's like I'm trying to learn as much as I can and to try and weave it into everything that I'm doing. Kind of recruiting and team building is a little bit newer to me. So that's a big learning avenue for me right now. Just kind of talking to people and finding out what their needs are in the end, like what they're looking for, and figuring out if this is or isn't the right fit. If it is, there's kind of lots of different ways to do it and succeed. I'm trying to figure out what the best way is for them, and doing a lot of listening. So I'm kind of working on that leadership and interviewing and just kind of listening skills right now, along with all that AI.
Yeah. Within AI at the moment, is there a specific tool you've learned about that you think you might be implementing into your business in the future, or a certain kind of skill that you're specifically trying to learn now?
Just trying to get a sense of what's possible, I think, in the end. I mean, I'm definitely using Chat GPT is, kind of the go-to in the end, but just trying to kind of broaden my horizons, figure out how to use that effectively. Just kind of helping me, hone any sort of like marketing ideas and stuff like that. Still kind of learn about, like doing kind of passive outreach, with customers and stuff like that, but that's still trying to kind of figure that out
Uh-huh.
and kind of how that works and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so just since we're on the technical side of things, are there any specific metrics within your business right now that you're looking to improve? Whether that be on the sales side, like internal operations, making things more efficient, maybe like closing deals at an even higher rate. Is there one thing you're specifically working to improve on?
I mean, I think always it's always conversion in the end, kind of pull through. I think that's, something that especially in solar, everyone's trying to kind of increase. I mean, that's kind of where, especially in power, like building relationships is super important. It's, we're still definitely in growth phase in solar. But depending on the markets, there's also still, there's a fair amount of saturation that you see. And, customers are just getting kind of bombarded, with messaging, and it could be very confusing for them ultimately. And so, generating a certain amount of trust with them is super important. So that's also kind of ties back into the AI thing. It's like you want to have a personal touch, but you also need to touch a lot of people. And so it's like, how do you balance this, this AI touching, but then kind of gaining, having a personal touch with everybody. It's definitely a challenge for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with that. I think AI is just making it so everyone can reach out to everyone now, but at the same time, it's sometimes not personal enough. So having that combo of the two is really important there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's honestly, it's like it's trying to train AI to be like you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so we'll kind of see where that all leads. But you can't ignore it
Uh-huh.
is the bottom lines.
Yeah, so with AI, what have you seen some of your competitors doing, and how are you trying to stay on track with them in regards to that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wish I knew I could see exactly what my competitors are doing. I mean, in the end, I mean, you got to kind of focus on what the competition's doing, but I more just kind of focus, in a sense, like what is working for me, and what can I actually execute on a daily basis? Because whatever sort of prospecting mechanism you're using or strategy, it's something that you kind of have to, one, you have to be able to understand it to kind of tweak it to work your way, but you've also got to be able to do it on a daily basis. And you kind of have to kind of like doing it. I mean, you've always got to get a little bit uncomfortable in the end. Otherwise, I don't think that you're really going to succeed, especially in sales. But so, yeah, I mean, I just kind of answer that question. I mean, I don't ultimately know what the competition is doing with it, though I definitely know that they are using it. So, I mean, the way that I kind of approach it, like I kind of said earlier, is how do I implement these tools while still coming off in an authentic way in the end, because those are the relationships that I like to build. So that's just kind of the code that I'm trying to crack in the end, is how to make it effective, how to make it authentic, and how to actually have it be something that leads to, a true relationship, with that customer or with another professional, business or something like that.
Yeah, that personal touch is definitely huge. I think it's especially important for like retaining customers over the long run.
Yeah, 100%. And it's about creating that trust up front and almost more importantly, maintaining that trust through the sales process, through the installation process, through the support afterwards. Um, you know, because a lot of sales companies, a lot of industries, they're just kind of looking for low hanging fruit, get the install and move on. In the end, I've always like my very first customer that I got like 4.5 years ago still has my personal phone number. And I still check in with her every now and again just to make sure the system's working okay. Because if she's having any issues, I want to be the first one to be able to help her. And that's always, it's going to benefit them and it's going to benefit me, because if anyone ever asks them about solar, they're still going to remember my name, and they're going to let them know that, hey, he's still around. They just didn't just sell this and run.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we know that building a relationship starts right at the beginning of the sales process. And we know that door knocking is just absolutely huge in the solar industry.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about how your sales process is different from that standard door knocking method?
I mean, I basically knocked doors myself for about 4 years in the end. It's it's an effective way of reaching out to the customer. It's definitely hard. There are honestly a lot of self growth and keeping myself motivated out there. But there's in kind of an overbearingness, pushiness nature to D2D that's perpetrated by a lot of door knocking people. And it's really not their fault all the time. It's kind of just how they're trained. And it's probably why there's a fair amount of fatigue with, with some of the customers, especially like, I live in California, so I mean, California markets get absolutely hammered with door knockers, and they're definitely starting to feel it. I think door knocking can be done properly and in a respectful manner. I kind of, you know, moved away from it, ultimately because I just kind of wanted to build something larger than just what I could actually just execute, by knocking on doors. But the way that I really try and approach it now is, as I've mentioned before, it's kind of building relationships and then, training people how to kind of build those relationships. So I really try and work with, you know, other professionals that are already talking and dealing with homeowners like roofers and real estate agents and HVAC companies, electricians, plumbers, hot tub salespeople, who are already, interacting with homeowners. And if, that homeowner happens to just mention something about solar, or you're installing a hot tub and you're like, hey, I noticed you don't have solar, your usage is definitely going to go up a little bit. I know someone who can help run the numbers, see if it makes sense for you. Um, and kind of generating business that way. And it's a really good way to also to differentiate yourself from, say that door knocker or that Facebook ad or that Google ad that's making all these kind of wild promises. I feel like a lot of people want to find out more about solar, but they just don't want to invite a salesperson into their lives, right? And that is completely understandable. But they have questions. And as powerful and as great as the internet is, you can find everything there. And that actually kind of is the problem. So there's just tons of confusing, contradictory information. So it's hard to even get a clear picture. And a lot of people just want to ask some questions, without necessarily being, having the old Kirby vacuum salesperson, refusing to leave their house. So if you can be the source of just an honest assessment, and someone that you can kind of ask questions to, then eventually you're gonna find people to help.
Yeah. And so within this current strategy where it's not door knocking, it's like more sort of online, what do you find to be the most difficult about it? Not like within the industry, but just within the business side of it for you.
Kind of breaking through the noise, because obviously everyone's online, everyone's doing, kind of marketing, so it's like, how do you kind of differentiate yourself, in the end? So, I mean, I do some, you know, online marketing, but not a whole lot. In the end, I'm just trying to kind of talk to people that know the people that I'm talking to, and then talk to the people they know, and then talk to the people they know, and try and grow my network that way.
So network as in professional network, or also talking to potential customers in the future and maybe referrals? Like what approach are you taking there by growing your network, do you mean?
Yeah, so both. So, building the network with professionals to kind of create a funnel of referrals. Like I mentioned, talking to roofers, HVAC people, right? So just basically, if I get like a real estate agent or something like that, and I'm talking to them, they're going to have kind of, real estate agents always have like a list of contractors that they use. So it's like, well, hey, I'd love to talk to your HVAC person, and see if basically kind of adding solar, as a service, it would be something that they would be interested in. So that would be kind of building that professional network. And then basically when it kind of comes to building, networks of potential customers, a lot of that just has to do with all the people that I've touched, all of my current customers, always kind of staying in touch, always offering myself to be, of assistance, trying to always kind of like letting them know what's going on in the industry. Sometimes like to send out, just emails about recent, rate increases, and be like, hey, did you hear about this? Isn't it nice? It's not something that you have to worry about anymore. And just kind of just staying in touch and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about your future goals for the business. In like the next 6 to 12 months, where do you see Elevate the Sun for a growth perspective?
Yeah, great question. I mean, in the end, I'm starting to build a lot in other states. I mean, it's kind of cool because basically it's like the opportunity that can be found within Power and then on my particular team, Elevate the Sun. It could be like your full-time gig where you're just going all in, almost kind of creating your own business. Or it can kind of be done part-time. Like just earlier this morning, I just got out the phone with a lady who's retired, but just likes to kind of stay busy. And she has like a network of people, and I think she's going to kill it. And so it's like being able to kind of nurture and create opportunities for other people to either just add, a couple extra $1,000 to their annual income, or, creating people that can honestly earn multiple six figures if they're going all in. And so basically my goal is, and it's kind of hard to put like, well, how many of these people do I want? Um, but like most of my focus these days with kind of team building and recruiting is figuring out how I can have as many people underneath me that are basically kind of making life-changing money from what they were doing, whether honestly that's just making like 80 grand or whether it's making like, $250,000. It's like, how do I help take all the knowledge that I have and all of the success that I've had in this industry? How do I pass that down? And how many people can I help kind of achieve that? And so that's kind of where my focus is, where my focus is going.
That's a fantastic goal. And do you think you're able to focus more on helping other people versus just growing your own business because of the success you've had in the past? Or have you always sort of had that like I want to help other people kind of mindset?
It's always been, a thing that I've always been in management and, for a good portion of my life. And I've always kind of enjoyed helping, people upgrade, and kind of meet their potential. For a long time, it was hard to do that because I had to put so much time into kind of prospecting, door knocking, and it was like hard to kind of find the time. At my old job, it was like you had to come in, and it was like all about you had to basically like come in full time and door knock. You had to, like, if you had another job, you basically had to leave it. Door knocking, there's a high turnover rate. A lot of people will try it because the money possibilities there. It is real. It's just a lot of people have a hard time achieving it just because there's so much rejection, so much difficulty. So I had a hard time bringing people in when I was doing that, just because I didn't want someone giving up a job that they had for potential here in door knocking. But since I kind of transferred my business over to Power, and there's so much more resources for really being entrepreneurial and building your own thing, it's really allowed me to kind of tap into that side of the business because it really can you can succeed and approach the business in so many different ways. Like I said, I talked to someone who's retired and just wants to do, part time, add like $4 or $5, per month to their income, as well as people that basically want to build, almost like an empire. So I think that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I think that answers.
Yeah. And I know I asked about this for the sales side earlier, but is there one other major challenge you're facing in your business that you would want to solve today if you could? And what would that be if so?
Well, I mean, it's, stability in pricing and interest rates would be nice. There's a lot of turmoil, with tariffs and stuff like that, which has some impact. It's not huge. The depends on, I think your particular business, and your product array. Pretty lucky at Power that we have multiple product options. So, like some of our batteries are going to get pretty expensive, but some are going to be able to kind of maintain a similar pricing that we've had. Same thing with panels, um, and stuff like that. But that causes a little bit of But honestly, if I could change one thing, and things are kind of driving this direction a little bit, um, is to kind of if we could increase the integrity of the business overall. Ultimately, people have had bad experiences, have been sold bad systems because just like any industry, there's always bad actors, and it kind of brings the whole industry down. So there are movements for having salespeople getting registered to the point where if they get any sorts of complaints from customers or businesses or something like that, it's kind of like a public track record, so we can hopefully kind of weed out some of the bad actors. Um, because I mean, at this point, we have like 5% saturation nationally. I mean, there's so many homeowners out there to help. It's not a zero sum game at this point. So if we could all just in the industry just do it right, have the customer's best interest in mind, give them a great experience from the introduction through the sales process to the install and to the customer service afterwards. Um, it's just going to make it so much easier for everybody else in the end. So yeah, if we could just clean up clean up the industry a little bit would be
Yeah, no, I've heard so much with that, like the sleazy salesman kind of thing going on. I know with there's a lot of companies that do like solar installations, but then also at the same time, there's troubles like actually getting it repaired because most of the money's in the installation. So there's kind of a few problems here and there that could use some fixing and just build that integrity up for the industry.
yep, exactly. And then on the sales side too, it's like there's a lot of like, one touch, two touch sales, and then, the salesperson's gone, and then yeah, and then you just got the install company. And so I mean it's not an easy challenge, in the end. So all you got to do is just all you can do is do it right yourself, and then hopefully gain that trust, and then that's how you build those relationships that can continue to feed you down the line.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. And what marketing channels are you thinking about using within like the next 12 to 24-ish months, whether it's just advertising, maybe becoming more of a content creator and building your brand, like some kind of thought leadership? What's on your radar in that regard?
Yeah, so it's like it's for me it's such a double-edged sword. I mean the social platforms are good for reaching people. I mean I think that's pretty obvious. On a personal level, and as a father of a 10-year-old girl, like social media also scares the hell out of me. And so I kind of limit my personal usage in the end, but I know, how good it is for reaching people. So in the end, like I use Facebook, and that's about it. I mean, I have an Instagram account. I don't use TikTok. There's probably other social platforms, but I just don't personally want to be on them very often. And I think that the personal touch is important. So I kind of feel like I do need to be on there and having my own engagement with people. So from that standpoint, kind of sticking to one is probably what I will personally be doing for those reasons.
Jeff, thanks so much for sharing today. Where can our audience find you online?
So you can find me, on Facebook, just Jeff Restel, Restel, and same thing on Instagram. You can always go to my website, which is elevatethesun.com as well.
Jeff, thanks so much for coming on today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Of course.